Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Thanks again for joining us on Maximize Monday. I try to post like months in advance in terms of who's going to be joining me. As you can see, we have a new guest this week, Ian. And as they say in the wrestling industry, card is subject to change. So Ian was not scheduled to be with us this week, but he was gracious enough to make the hot tag and join me. So Ian, thanks so much for jumping in and being a part of Maximize Monday this week.
Absolutely, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So, not a ton going on for me in terms of motivators this week. So, just kind of breaking down what's happening as of the recording of this episode. Thor: Love and Thunder is out. I do plan to see it relatively soon. So, the wife and I have a babysitter coming so we can see it. We usually go during the week. We're one of those like movie going people that go like on a Tuesday through Thursday type deal as opposed to the weekend crowd. So looking forward to getting out. We've seen like 3-4 movies total since my daughter was born in theaters. So the opportunities that we get to go out are few and far between. So we really enjoy those. Um, in terms of other stuff coming up, I'm in between trips at this point. So we got back from our beach vacation a couple weeks, and we're now entering the countdown to Disney mode. So I have a little bit less than a month until the little one's first trip to Disneyland. We're doing a couple days in California first, just to see how she handles it, how she handles the life-size characters before we invest in a full week down in Orlando. So we will see how that goes, but we're at less than 30 days. So it's like, it's real. It's getting here. Like the app is sending me notifications. So we're at that point. Um, the other thing motivating me this coming weekend is one of those weekends where I don't have anything planned, which are few and far between as well. So I always really kind of look forward to those, like not having planned weekends. I think this is the last one I have this summer in terms of nothing on the calendar. So just kind of looking forward to getting stuff done around the house that I've been putting off, and not being tied down to anything that's set in stone, but I'm sure something will come up. Always does. In terms of the work week itself, in terms of what I'm trying to get done, as Ian can attest, the life of a recruiter is never ending. So calls, calls, calls. That's kind of the main thing I want to get focused on this week, is just packing my schedule, getting some more interviews on the calendar, getting some more candidates in my pipeline here. And that's the other focus, is just kind of, focusing on my pipeline too, talking to some candidates I've spoken to in the past, checking in on them, seeing how people that I've filled, how the roles are treating them and everything like that. So just making sure that I'm covering both ends of the recruiting spectrum here. And wins from the week before, it was kind of a busy week for me coming off the holiday weekend, and I was able to fill 5 positions. So that was a big boost for me, in terms of getting back on track, getting those positions filled, working with some pretty awesome hiring managers to get stuff done quickly, which is always nice in the recruiting industry. So those are my wins for the week. Ian, what do you have going on this week on your end?
Yeah, I mean it's always packed. I think when I look at the things that are going to motivate me every week, I always tend to look at like the broader pictures and then kind of focus in down on some of those micro goals or those micro accomplishments. But I mean, the same for motivators too. So I mean, for me, it's a week over week thing that motivates me recently too, has been actually my fiance, because my fiance just got into recruiting as well. And she's still pretty green in it. Not that I'm not green in many ways, but she's still pretty green. So one of the really cool things for me has been not just the way that I can make investments into her progressing her career as a partner, but a huge motivator has been seeing the way that she makes investments in herself. And the ways that she's kind of, she's changed the way that she sets goals for herself. And it's really cool to see somebody grow like that. It's a huge motivator for me. And that's something that I look at too. You can probably tell, I mean, when somebody gets into something, they're brand new, they kind of have their own quirks and ways to do things, and it motivates you because you're like, oh, I want to try that. That's pretty awesome. That's been a big thing. And then, on top of that, and it kind of falls in the same spectrum, is just visualizations, and understanding what the broader goal is and what I'm trying to accomplish, whether it's, where I want to be in the future from a relocation standpoint, where I want to be from a family standpoint. I try to visualize what my life is going to look like, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, and then make those micro motivations every week to see how I can invest in that and I can build on that. But outside of that, the other thing that really motivates me in recruiting is the opportunity. I know you can speak to this, the opportunity to speak with individuals and find them a home. Because really, I mean, you think about it, when you work somewhere, that's your family in many, many ways. There's a separation, of course, but to find somebody a home where, it's right for them. Market is outrageously hot right now. But at Spark Packaging, I can speak for everybody and say this, we're really big on forming relationships with the candidates we speak with, taking time, and we find them those opportunities that they're phenomenal ones for them. It can change their life in a lot of different ways. So that's a huge motivator. And that kind of falls into for goals for the week. We have obviously, metrics that we set for our recruiters here, and internal metrics for the amount of submittals that we have for our clients and whatnot. So a goal going into every week is to be able to, submit, a certain amount. I'll say, five individuals per week for the right roles. And for me lately, that's been a lot of engineering sides, a lot of continuous improvement, some plant management, some leadership roles. And so finding those people is a huge goal for me. I mean, every single week. But then on top of that too, another goal that I have is, I have an individual who's been an absolute blessing to work with, fantastic person. I love him. And it's one of those individuals, those people you can talk to just kind of for fun, as on the weekends when you're not on a time crunch, you can just have a conversation, and getting that individual to the finish line. They've got an offer accepted. They're relocating all the way across the country. So a goal for me going into this week is going to be to really make sure I do everything I can to make that person comfortable and situated. And a win from last week, and this is kind of a win that's been in the making, but I placed probably one of the more substantial roles that I've placed in my career thus far. Definitely the most substantial in my career thus far. Hopefully not all throughout the entire thing. But that's been a huge win, because this was one of those roles where it was sort of like the stars aligned for the candidate and for the client. Immediate connection, immediate chemistry, such a phenomenal opportunity, growing company, experienced leader. And that was a huge win to see that just sort of, materialize, from the conversations we had. And that's kind of where I've been at for the week, just kind of on that high.
Awesome. Yeah. That's huge. The biggest one of your career so far. Definitely ride that wave and keep riding it. So one question I like to ask any recruiter that joins me on the show here is just kind of what got you into recruiting. The industry right now is so hot right now. So what kind of drew you into it, and what are some things that you really just enjoy about being a recruiter beyond what you mentioned, building those connections, because that's a huge part of it for sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so I have a really close friend of mine, has been a recruiter for a while, and he's done the agency side, he's done the corporate side, currently in the corporate side now. And I'd always talked with him about where he was at. We'd always talk about his roles, talk about what's going on and stuff, and it was always something that kind of appealed to me, and I felt like I think I could be successful with this. And so that individual actually hooked me up with where I am currently, and I had met with some other organizations and interviewed and whatnot, and it just wasn't the best fit. What got me in here at Spark is truly it truly is the culture. It's the people that are around us. It's the leadership that we're given, the leadership that we're able to provide, the mentorship for new people that come in. It's such a tight-knit family here. That's definitely what keeps me too. But, from recruiting as a whole, one of the things that I really enjoy personally, I'm the kind of person who's very analytical. So something that I love to be able to do is go in and look at the number of reach outs that I make for a job, and then see where percentage there. Or I really like sending out detailed descriptions of positions and being transparent with candidates, because I think as recruiters, obviously there's some stigmas that are out there about recruiters. So being the person and understanding those stigmas, having worked with them, but then being the person that gets to break that and create a phenomenal experience, that's my favorite part.
All right. So last question then before I let you go here, what would be the one piece of advice? Because I'm sure you've seen recruiting is kind of a hot industry, a lot of people looking to get into it. So what would you say to anyone who's aspiring to be a recruiter? What piece of advice would you give them when making that transition?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say take your time. Take your time in understanding, when you're interviewing with the company, take your time in understanding and ask questions about what does your culture look like? Ask. I would like the opportunity, and I'm sure anybody would, to meet with the team too. Just the leadership, but meet with the team and chat, figure out about metrics, find out about what's important there, and if it aligns with your core values, it's just like we say. For companies hiring individuals, you want to hire based on your core values, but you want to get hired based on your core values too. So identify what's most important to you in coming into the industry. Identify the company that has those things for you, and then beyond that, be ready to fall and be ready to have a tough time, but pick yourself up. And the biggest piece of advice I would say is don't let the highs get too high. And don't let the lows get too low. Let everything roll off your shoulders and on to the next, because there's so much happening all the time.
Absolutely. Fast moving industry for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ian, appreciate you jumping on here. The late notice and being flexible with me. It was a pleasure having you on to talk about kind of what you do, the mindset and the growth at Spark. So big fan of what you guys are doing there. We'll certainly be in touch down the road as well. And everyone watching, appreciate you taking the time out of your day to see us, and we'll be back next week.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you, man.